It has been 8 long months since we've seen the puck drop on any kind of college hockey. We resume inside the Big Ten. And to get some perspective, we check in with Jim Connelly, executive editor of U.S.C.H.O.com. Jim, let's start with the Big Ten as a whole. You have 5 Big Ten teams inside the U.S.C.H.O.com top 20 to start the year. As a league overall, how does it compare to some of the other premier hockey conferences, NCHC, Hockey East, ECAC, and so forth?
I mean, very strong when you really look at it. I mean, 5 teams is the most of any conference. You put it in perspective, you don't have a lot of teams in the top 5, actually none. The highest ranked team is Penn State. But even if let's throw in Arizona State for this season because they'll be playing an all Big Ten schedule. They're ranked as well. 6 teams in the top 20. Then you have even Wisconsin received some votes. So it's only Michigan State that is absent of getting votes right now. I think that as a conference, very strong. Now, the most interesting part is the highest ranked team right now in the U.S.C.H.O. poll is Penn State. And yet they were picked to finish last in the Big Ten coaches poll. So I think there's a lot of real weariness of how to pick teams right now. We didn't even finish last season. Let's not forget that. And we don't really know what is in store, how these teams, they've been practicing for a long time, how they'll be more prepared for this season, less prepared for this season. It's going to be a strange year. We all know that. We knew that coming in. But I think that this poll and the U.S.C.H.O. and the coaches poll both show it's up for grabs. Nobody really knows who should be the top team anywhere.
Well, you mentioned, Jim, what may be the biggest X factor of all, the inclusion of Arizona State, not an official conference member, but playing an exclusive Big Ten schedule. What are your thoughts about this partnership, not just how it benefits the Big Ten to get an 8th team, which is something that the league is certainly looking for from a scheduling perspective, but also how it benefits Arizona State, which otherwise really would not have had a schedule at all to play?
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Greg Powers, Arizona State's head coach, a couple of weeks back, and specifically about this. And he said we wouldn't have had a hard time filling a schedule in November and December. There were enough, conferences that were looking to play some out of conference play. But then you think about it: Hockey East, no travel at all. ECAC, they won't play till probably January. Atlantic Hockey, they don't want their teams on playing. So you're really, pigeonholing Arizona State. And then when conferences, I should say, are more in tune at really focusing just on the conference in January, February, March. In the past, Arizona State has always had some way, whether it's playing a Big Ten or an Atlantic hockey team for most of those weekends because they're imbalanced leagues. So they were really in a situation that they didn't know what to do, and the Big Ten was by far the best option. It works, it's a win-win. I mean, now obviously Arizona State can put together a schedule, albeit every one of their 28 games are going to be played on the road. That's a huge disadvantage. But I like this fit. I don't know if it will see it as a permanent fit. I think the Big Ten really certainly would like to get that next team, that 8th teams. And, they've obviously gone down the affiliate membership route when you look at Notre Dame. So it's not something that's closed off. And I think that it could be a very good fit for Arizona State. I think in terms of the competitiveness, you're putting a team that would have been in last year's NCAA tournament, made the NCAA tournament the year before, advanced to the regional finals. This is a team that's only in the 7th year of existence, but they do have money. They pump money into their program. I think that's something when you really look at the perspective of what an independent team can do, they've done a lot of things right.
How similar is the growth of Arizona State in just its 7th year to be top 15 and playing at the level that they are playing at to what Penn State did in its infancy and how quickly Guy Gadowski got that team to be a national championship contender?
Yeah, very similar. We're going to see another team come in this year, Long Island University, and I think that they will not have the same roadmap as you had at Penn State and that you had at Arizona State. But, you look at the Pagulas and what they did at Penn State, and then you kind of just translate that. I think that people out at Arizona State, there was a large group of alumni that said, we can put together, I think it was between $70 and $80 million. We'll find a way to get this program off the ground. They've got great support from the state of Arizona. They just announced this week that they'll break ground on an on-campus facility. They've been playing in a very small modified youth hockey arena, Oceanside, which has been a great home ice for them. Very tough place to play. When you have to play in front of 800 screaming fans in an area that barely holds 600, it's a tough place to play. But they need the building. That really will be beneficial to them in terms of attracting teams. But let's think about it. It's not that hard to attract teams to Arizona in January and February. But I do like the way that they've ramped up. I love the fact that they stuck with Greg Powers as their head coach. He was their club hockey coach, did a very good job at the club level, but they saw in him the ability to turn him into a Division I head coach. And he's done that. He's taken this program and run. Great assistants. He's done fantastic in the scouting, their whole staff really in the scouting and recruitment of players. They're going to be a program that's going to stay around this map for a long time. They know how to get it done.
And they're going to open up against Michigan, an intriguing team, Jim, because Strauss-Mann is the Big Ten's preseason goaltender of the year. And you look down their entire roster, and Mel Pearson probably has 6, maybe 7 guys that, when all is said and done, have first or second round NHL draft pick potential. What do you think the identity of this particular Michigan team could be if all those guys play to the level they're capable of?
I think they play fast, and I love watching hockey that Michigan plays right now. They've been a fast team. I think last year at times they struggled from a defensive perspective. They had to be bailed out a lot by, as you said, Strauss-Mann, a fantastic goaltender and a great find there. But I think that you're going to probably see a little bit more speed, hopefully a little bit more responsible team defense. I think that's one of the things that they really need to bring back in, is have that real team defense, the commitment to team defense. Because if you don't have that, we see it in the Big Ten. I mean, I love the way that Penn State plays, but they get themselves in trouble sometimes not being a defense-focused enough team. We'll see it a little bit more, I think, in Michigan and even Penn State this year. There'll be a lot of teams where run and gun is fun to play, but you always realize that the bread and butter is really finding the way to keep the puck out of your net.
That defense and goaltending, and that's going to be a focus for Notre Dame this year. They lose Cale Morris, who was basically everything for the last couple of years, and Notre Dame opens up against Wisconsin. And I thought it was interesting. Jeff Jackson didn't really talk this week about his goaltending situation, his roster. He wanted to talk about Cole Caufield, the first-round draft pick for Wisconsin that decided to come back to Madison instead of going to the NHL. And Jim, Jeff Jackson was very clear. He said, I think he's the best player in college hockey. Just how good is Cole Caufield, and are we looking at a legitimate Hobey Baker candidate?
I think if he performs up to expectations, there's no doubt. I mean, he's going to be the preseason favorite. I mean, the thought that you got him to come back for a second season is astounding, especially when you think that they lost Alex Turcotte, they lost K'Andre Miller, they lost Kalanick, they lost Daniel Lebedev in goal. So that's a lot of high-end players that chose not to return. And then here you have Cole Caufield. He decides to come back. He's going to give it another go. I think he wants to have some success. I think he also understands, and Montreal probably understands, that he has a little bit of developing left to do, but he has all of the tools. He is a speedy player. He's a smart player. He even has a pretty good defensive commitment to him as a very talented forward. So I think that he looks to be one of the players that will stand out. I'm not surprised that Jeff Jackson's talking a lot about him to the media, because he's talking about him to his team, and that will be the player to watch in this series. But at the same time, Notre Dame, they lost a lot. They graduated a lot of their top scorers, but Alex Steve's coming back. I think he's going to be one of those players. And then the goaltending situation, I assume we're probably going to see Ryan Bischel for probably the first game, maybe both of them. I don't know a ton about his goaltenders that he has coming in, but that if Jeff Jackson recruited them, they're good goaltenders. You've got to go back in the last 8 years of that program, and they have had top-notch, some of the best goaltending in the country. So I really think that when all is said and done, Jeff Jackson's going to have a pretty competitive team, despite some of the losses that they've had. The one area that I do want to see Notre Dame change, that they really haven't in the last couple of years, is offense. They've got to score goals. You go back to the Frozen 14, they were averaging 3.2 goals a game in 2017. It was dropped down to 2.9, I think, in 2018. But last year, barely 2.5 goals a game. And you say, oh, that's only 3/4 of a goal. 3/4 of a goal over the course of a season goes a long way. So I think it's an intriguing first weekend matchup. But you mentioned it to start. Cole Caufield, all eyes are going to be on him.
All right, lastly, Jim, I can't let you go, obviously, and we're talking Big Ten hockey without talking about Bob Motzko and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. You look down that preseason All Big Ten list, and the first, second, and honorable mention teams just absolutely littered with Minnesota players. Sammy Walker at the top of that list, a guy who has just gotten better every year that he's been in Minneapolis. And the question, you can't answer it definitively, but the question that every Gopher fan has been asking for nearly 2 decades now, is this the year that we finally get back to where we're supposed to be?
Yeah, expectations in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, is probably what makes that coaching job one of the most difficult jobs in college hockey. It's like being, I'm out in New England, and it's like being a New England Patriots fan. You have a down year. You could have 20 before it that are perfect, and the fans are going to be all over you. And, I think that that's what it is every year in the Twin Cities. And in last year's team, I thought they were playing really strong hockey down the stretch, and they really would have liked a shot at a Big Ten title. Had the playoffs finished. But I think that when you look at what they've brought back this year, they're stacked. And, obviously, first place in the preseason coaches poll. We had them 14 in our poll, but I think that, voters probably expect to put them higher, but every year you're sitting there saying, when are they going to reach that potential? When are they going to reach that potential? Don Lucia had a few cracks at the apple, many of them, and Bob Motzko now trying to do it. But, the fans in that market ask that question every year. Is this our year? It's a wait and see, but they're stacked. They've got the team to do it.
Jim Connelly, great stuff, executive editor of U.S.C.H.O.com. Jim, we appreciated the first, but certainly not the last time that I know we'll catch up to talk some Big Ten hockey over the course of the year.
Well, it's great to have college hockey back, and that's the most important takeaway this weekend. Let's enjoy dropping the puck.
Well said, my friend. Well said.